And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for Thursday morning. We got a lot of IFR here. Northern Bering Sea all the way down across and inland across Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta down to the Alaska Peninsula and northeastward here up into the Brooks Range and North Slope. Break here behind that zone, and then some more VFR, or some more IFR coming into the western Aleutians, and a lot of IFR, that storm that's moving into the Gulf of Alaska here, spreading up to the North Gulf Coast and in toward the southeast coast, especially the northern areas there. And for the afternoon, IFR now over toward the eastern border of the Panhandle. Still a lot of IFR here left in the Gulf of Alaska, also up over the North Slope and the northern Seward Peninsula and Yukon Delta coast there westward across the northern Bering Sea. And we've got some IFR there along the western Alaska Range on down toward the Alaska Peninsula. But most of the peninsula there, marginal VFR, as well as the Aleutians. And for Friday morning, we've got IFR up over the Arctic coast into the North Slope. A lot of IFR here over the southwest interior into the northern Bering Sea. It stays marginal down to the south across the Aleutians. And Fognak Island up into Cook Inlet, as well as pushing into Prince William Sound, some VFR. Otherwise, a lot of lower conditions, marginal and IFR for the southern half of the interior, and a lot of IFR there for the southeast coast. And for the afternoon hours, again, IFR over toward the eastern border there, the Panhandle. Some IFR left over the North Gulf Coast here, and along the central and western Alaska Range. A bigger area up here over the Kobuk-Koyukuk Valley to the Brooks Range. And pretty good IFR here over the northern Bering Sea, right on up toward the Bering Strait. Some of that sliding into, looks like Nome and possibly Golovin there, down across St. Lawrence Island, as well as Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta coastline. And marginal VFR, Pribilof southward to almost to the Aleutians. Not too bad out here over the Aleutians for the afternoon on Friday. And for passes, looking at Anatuvik and Adigan, both another IFR day coming up there. Same thing for Lake Clark and Merrill, especially on the eastern entrances of these passes, and rainy as well. IFR on the east side, better conditions to the west. Windy, marginal VFR. Isabel, IFR. Mintesta, marginal VFR. And for Tanita, IFR. Portage, IFR. And Chilkoot and White, looking IFR. Freezing levels here, 2 to 8,000 feet there across the southeast coastal areas. Otherwise at the surface, all the way north of St. Matthew Island, cutting in across Nunivak Island and across southern Alaska. Moving to icing, we've got with the front pushing up to the coast and inland over the southeast coast, areas of considerable moderate rime icing right here along the coastline below about 12,000 feet or so. And then another area of icing here with a system out to the west for the Aleutians. And for the jet stream here, there's that system there associated with that icing here for the Aleutian chain. Otherwise, south winds 70 knots across the eastern Aleutians. And we've got south to southwest winds there to the north from the Seward Peninsula across the Arctic coast at about 65 knots. Strongest winds here, 140 knot jet there blowing across Dixon Entrance and catching the Prince of Wales Island area, and from about Wrangell southward for 9,000 feet. Good southwest winds right into the southeast coast. They're up to 65 knots. Otherwise, looking at southeasterlies, 45 knots from the North Gulf Coast into the western Copper River Basin. And lighter winds mostly out of the west here for the Aleutians. And pretty light here for the northern Bering Sea, 9,000 feet. We've got some easterlies and northeasterlies up to 40 knots there for the western Arctic coast into the Chukchi Sea. And east up to 45 knots there, coming across the Kobuk-Selawik Valley areas. Lighter to the south there, and wrapping around here, 55 knot east winds there along the North Gulf Coast. About 50 knots here into the southeast coast. Northwest winds, the strongest wind max there, southeast of Kodiak Island. And then with the front out here to the west, we've got 45 knot winds associated with that. Turbulence-wise, moderate turbulence expected here for all of the Aleutians, well, at least as far as Kiska Island, a little bit better out toward Chimyanat too. And also expect a pretty bumpy day turbulence-wise here for the southeast coast. all the way up to Yakutat, probably over toward Cordova, as well as the western Arctic coast.